Hi, I'm Jessica Pyska. Thanks for coming to the first online Power of Community interview that I'm holding. I'm a candidate for District 5 Supervisor, and I wanted to start holding these interviews to discuss some of the issues that our community is facing. I'm really excited today to have these two awesome local businesswomen, Sabrina Andrus and Jennifer Gayda, to talk about how they're pivoting in our COVID-19 moment. So Sabrina, would you like to tell us a little bit about your pre-March 2020 life?
I can go back that far. Let's see. Yes. First of all, seriously, thank you so much, Jessica, for putting together this series. I'm really excited to follow along and see who else you talk to. I really just love to see us lifting each other up and highlighting the good creativity and innovation that we know runs deep in this county. So very much appreciate you doing that. So yes, hello, my name is Sabrina Andrus. I am raised in Kelseyville, went to Kelseyville High School, moved away and came back about 2.5 years ago to, in part, start a business, which I'll talk about shortly, and then to take care of my mom, who at the time was fighting cancer. So along with a childhood friend of mine, Bonnie Headley, we went to high school together. Actually, I've known her since about third grade. We opened what has become A&H General Store in downtown Kelseyville, right on Main Street. And this is a space that really is designed to be for the community. We've got a wine bar, an infant florist, a big communal table up front. For those who haven't been in, we've got a market with a lot of specialty and organic foods, things you may not be able to get in other places. And then having that community space was super, super important, which of course sort of threw a wrench in things when there wasn't a space available for the community to go to. And about a year or so later, so we opened that in August 2018, and then in June 2019, we figured, why not? Let's open a second store. And so we opened Maker, just 2 doors down, in I think it was June of last year. So we just passed the 1 year mark. A maker really is basically our homage to the handmade. We love to carry and highlight goods that are made locally and in America, everything from like jewelry to soaps, candles, art decor, like wall art, home decor, that kind of stuff. And a lot of it is actually from some really talented makers here in Lake County, which has been very, very exciting. So that's 2 doors down, like I mentioned, from A&H on Main Street at the corner of Main and 2nd. It's in that gorgeous old bank building that's got the American flag on top. So I am the sole owner of both stores now, which of course, makes sense for someone who used to be a lawyer, but I'll talk more about that later. And both
Great.
of those stores are now open again.
Awesome. And Jennifer, where were you kind of pre-March?
Well, I too am from Kelseyville, went to high school here, moved out and back twice now, and I was always in the textile product design and development field. And then when I moved back here the second time, about 5-6 years ago, I joined Clay here at Canuck Peas, and we moved down to the old Kelseyville Lumber Building about 2 years ago. So we've been rocking and rolling down here during the COVID, though. We shut our doors, stayed home. We tried to do what we could for here, but I spent a little bit of time at home with my son, and I have made candles in the past, and was working on some candles for a friend of mine that was supposed to be getting married. And I just kind of kept going and decided to start a candle line, Bottle Rock Candle Studio. So here we are. And thank you too. And thank you, Sabrina. I think you both are women that empower other women, and I think that we all need to take the time at this time in our lives to empower each other. So that's great, and thank you.
Yes. And I would just like to mention that all three of us were raised in Lake County in this area. Went out, saw the world, did great things, educated ourselves, and came back to be a part of our community. And I love hearing those stories, and I love highlighting when people come back and try and contribute and elevate our community. So Jennifer, you talked a little bit about kind of making the pivot towards candles and that you used to make candles. Sabrina, and both you and Jennifer, what was the moment when you kind of decided that I'm going to try something different? What was the spark, and where did that come from? Sabrina, you didn't mention your new woodworking skills.
Jennifer, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. I think mine was kind of in a moment of anxiety, a lot of anxiety and stress. I'm a busy person, so to be at home and not have control of what's going on down here at Canuck Keys, and trying to be home with my son and try to get him to understand what's going on and to be safe. It causes me a lot of sleepless nights and anxiety. So I had a little bit more time to think than I normally do. But it was to keep my hands busy and to keep my artist side going. I just continued to feed it, and it helps with the anxiety, and I just kept going.
I think that's lovely to hear. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of times we don't talk about some of the tough times that we've had through SIP, through the shelter in place, and anxiety has been a big one for me too, for sure. For me, it was, so as I mentioned, I own the two businesses, and particularly with Maker, my hustle is to lift up and support local makers and artists. And as I was kind of settling into SIP, what that looked like for me, especially with the gym closed, turns out that really knocks me off my game when I can't get there every single day. It was, I went hardcore with backyard gardening and beautification, like I think a lot of people did. And I ended up ordering a couple planter boxes from a local gentleman on Facebook, and then started talking with a friend of mine about how we could maybe do them and create kind of our own line. Because the thing that I think I've really learned the last couple of years being home, having the businesses, is that I actually too am a creative and an artist. And it's not just about me showcasing others, but what if I actually sort of tried it, and what could that look like? And so it was a bit of a Hail Mary, like, sure, let's give it a whirl. I know nothing about woodworking, truly. That's not true. I helped with the baseboards at A&H General Store 2 years ago, and I was very proud of myself, but that was literally it. And turns out my friend John is very adept at all of this stuff and a good teacher. And so the two of us created what we kind of jokingly refer to as our side hustle called Palatable. And what we do, and you can find us on Instagram, Hello Palatable. And what we do is upcycle pallets basically into these, what I think are very, very cool planter boxes in a variety of shapes. We do little small ones and big 4x4s and these really cool hexagon ones. And it actually kind of took off, turns out. I mean, I think we've sold about 50 or 60 of them, including, in 4 to 6 weeks. My backyard, which was very lovely and tranquil and market lights and beautiful places to sit, is now just full of sawdust and various tools. But it's really fun to look out there and see all of that. And then lastly, just a couple weeks ago, we installed what, in my humble opinion, is a very cool giant installation at Juicy's Pizza in Lakeport. They were one of our first orders. They were really excited to support local makers doing stuff. And so all of the planters on the front of that building, we have done.
So it's interesting, both of your businesses were modeled after get-togethers and having social gatherings, because that's why we order t-shirts, right? Or events. That was the bulk of your business, right, Jen?
Yeah. And that's part of the anxiety part, because even when the shelter in place is over, our business at Canuck Keys is still suffering with the lack of the events and the sports and stuff. So it's more of a long-term situation for us. So that's where the anxiety of the whole situation comes in. And if instead of drinking, I decided to continue to create things. I also too. I decided to. I really believe in natural waxes. So I actually started ordering some, and I decided to try out coconut, mixed it with soy, and I used palm wax, and so I just kept going, and that's where we ended.
So I do have to say, if I can, her candles smell amazing. Oh, there you go. And they're beautiful.
See, great customer. Well, and that's the other thing too, is I really like a highly scented candle, and part of that, you choosing the natural waxes, it's healthier, but also burns longer, and it holds a lot more scent. So there's a lot of perks to using that type of wax. And so it's a little chemistry, but there's definitely, all of my candles are an art form to me, but there is chemistry involved in there too.
I also want to mention that you made a shirt that says, "I am the hustle."
I'm wearing one.
And I got it hot off the press. It was still hot. Yeah, oh, you've got it on. So Sabrina,
Yeah.
you need that one too.
Love it. Yes, for sure.
And so how have you adjusted the business model, and are you doing more online, or change hours, pickup? How is all that changing for your brick and mortar shops? And then also, are you having an online presence as well?
Well, I here, everything here at Knox's, everything we do is custom. We do very little retail. So for us to do more stuff online is kind of almost impossible. I did make sure that I'm connected to the phone, so a person can call me. They don't have to see me in person. They can email me, and we can connect in those type of ways. So I just kind of, took it from the face-to-face to the phone to the email to the text messages. And that's great. The people that can order, the people that are open, the events that are happening, they are placing orders. It's just more of with the cancellations of everything else, that's just not going to happen. So on the candle side of it, it was very surprising and interesting to me, because I remember the first time I made candles, I went to every farmer's market, I was at every event, and I could not sell a candle for the life of me. I remember crying and not even making enough money to pay for my booth fee. So I was very surprised. So every time I post stuff on Facebook, it sells. And that's what I did, is I made a few pieces, put them on Facebook, they sold, and I took orders for more. And then I continued to develop an actual line. I have about 10 different mixture scents that I do offer in a jar and a pillar and a votive. And a lot of the other stuff that I do, the centerpieces and the wood bowls, those are all custom and kind of 1, 2, 3 of a kind type of thing. So it was interesting for me, for people to purchase those online when they didn't even smell them. But it kept going, and the studio is actually at my house. So I would get a lot of people asking me if they could stop by the studio, which is fine during the shelter in place. So I was fine with people coming, maintaining their space or wearing a mask. I was okay with them coming to my garage. And I felt more comfortable with that than actually coming up into my house. So there's been that. I'm looking forward to, as things do open back up, is right now I have an inventory, a full inventory of stuff at Knox's. But as things open up, I'm really looking forward to placing them in other stores, boutiques around this area. But I think I just picked up over the last weekend, a couple of boutiques in Placerville area too. So I'm looking forward to that. But that has to be done more of a kind of a in-person type of thing. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm just kind of waiting till it opens up and see where it goes.
Great. And Sabrina, how are things changing for your shop?
Yeah, I do have to say, Jennifer, I am not surprised that people are buying it sort of smell unsmelled, whatever sight unseen is, for smelling, because I have to say it, and I can't say it enough, this community just shows up for each other in times of difficulty, and I experienced that when I shut down both stores. So to answer your question, Jessica, I shut down Maker right away during the shelter in place. And actually, A&H could have been deemed an essential business because we have groceries, but there's a lot of other stuff in there that isn't groceries, a lot of stuff to touch. For those of you who come in, there's a giant candy cart with toys and throwback candy, and it's like a magnet for kids. Suffice to say, I knew that people kind of be all over it, and I didn't want my space to be a place that could be, potential danger for anyone. So I chose to close A&H as well. What I did was took the time and appreciation to kick my butt into gear and get the websites that I had already going really up and running in a way that was much more user-friendly. So I've had websites for both since we opened the stores, but not online shopping available. I'd been working on that for Maker, and this was a nice little way to kick me into gear on that. And so it was a little bit difficult to figure out how to do online shopping as it relates to perishables, right? Cheeses, dairy, meat, things like that. What I ended up doing, and particularly, gosh, for the first 4 to 6 weeks, was just slammed, was offer delivery in Lakeport and Kelseyville, curbside pickup, and then shipping for non-perishables. And that took off real quick. I mean, as you might imagine, there were some things that even I couldn't get as a wholesaler. We sell Rancho Gordo heirloom beans. They're really, really good heirloom beans like pinto and chickpea and hominy, things like that. And even Rancho Gordo was shutting down what wholesalers could get. Could only get like 2 or 3 kinds. I mean, it really was sort of difficult to figure out what I could carry. But I did a lot of deliveries, saw some wonderful places in Kelseyville and Lakeport that I'd never seen, having grown up here. Did a lot of deliveries and did a lot of curbside pickup. I think the biggest shift in terms of what I was selling, particularly through A&H, was around more sort of like experiences. So actually, I had purchased all of our Easter candy and Easter basket stuff before SIP, right? So I'm sitting here looking at, you know, just hundreds and hundreds of dollars of Peeps and, you know, plastic Easter eggs and grasses and things like that, and went, okay, I'll make Easter baskets for people to buy ready-made and deliver them when I can. I mean, my car just got a ton of mileage the days leading up to Easter. So I think I ended up selling probably about 100 Easter baskets. Yeah. 150 when you count our little signature. I did grown-up Easter baskets too, with like vintage candy in the mugs. So that turned out to be really popular. And then Mother's Day as well. I did Mother's Day care packages. I think folks, when they went online, were really appreciate having something they could just click and add to the basket and not have to personalize too much. And so those 2 things, the Easter baskets and care packages, above and beyond, well, like way beyond my expectations in terms of what would sell and how much. And I still have both of the websites going and ship out some stuff a few times a week for sure. It's actually a nice way to integrate both what we've got in the store and online, because, you know, there are folks who are from the area who miss shopping here, who know they can get that one specific kind of jam that they got here, or I sell these Lake County vintage pear label coasters and tea towels that just fly off the shelves. And now folks, when they're, you know, back home in Texas, for example, can have a little piece of home and request those. So I'm still offering curbside and delivery. Haven't really had many folks take advantage, but I wonder if that's going to change in the next couple weeks. I'm not sure, but I'm ready for it.
Right, it really could. Oh my gosh, Easter and Mother's Day, that seems like so long ago. And I remember watching all of that, and it feels like a lifetime ago. That was such a great service that you provided. Have either of you reached out and gotten any technical assistance, or were able to access the PPP or the IDLE or any other services that really helped you during this time? Sabrina, did you have any of those services or help?
Most of the support that I received was really just in true Kelseyville fashion, sort of one-on-one, you know, talking to Jeff Lucas at the Lake County Economic Development Corporation, yes, for example, who's just down the street. I opted in the beginning not to apply for an SBA loan, in large part, honestly, because I was doing okay, and really believe that if you're doing okay, then you need to leave that money for folks who aren't. And so, I mean, I'm not saying that's not off the table later on down the line, because, you know, business is not where it was before. But I do appreciate that a lot of the local banks and community development organizations were really good about pushing information out, even when it was pretty clear that information was changing day to day and they weren't totally sure. So yeah, I do know the info was out there, and we kind of did our part with the Kelseyville Business Association pushing that info out as well. But I haven't personally taken advantage of them yet.
I agree. Sorry. I agree that that community has been a big help. Jeff Lucas and his team next door have been we've gone over there many times and asked them questions, and they've sat down. We were a little hesitant at first with the EIDL loan, and then the other, but we did apply for it. Our worry at Cannot Seize is more of the long range, because that's short-term help, and definitely we're going to take it. We got to the point where we need it to be able to maintain for a few months, but after that, I'm not so sure, because it's very short-term. Our issue is long-term, but the community support, whether it's the banks, the business association, or local business owners, or the guys next door, has been amazing. People that at Cannot Seize, people that can place an order, that are working, have definitely done it, and they definitely are strong believers in keeping everything local. So that's awesome, and I think we all are thinking that in our head. I know if I spend my money, I try my very best to keep it local. And I've noticed a lot of people are doing the same thing. With the candle company, I haven't felt, I'm just taking it one step at a time. I haven't really called on any help other than I do have a photographer that is working on some product shots so I can get a full-on website going, just because I'm trying to juggle a few different things and it'll take me forever. I don't feel like I'm there yet with that, but I do with the candle stuff. The community support is awesome, and it's what has got it going.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you have both reached out to Jeff and Andy Lucas. They are an amazing asset for our community. They actually also work with West Business Development Center, which is in Ukiah. And it's a SBA, they have SBA backing, which provides business services to small businesses like both of yours for technical assistance, websites, helping putting business plans and financials. So that's a resource also. And Jeff and Andy would be happy to direct anybody else that's needing some business support there as well. They worked together for a long, long time. So Sabrina, this is your Kelseyville Business Association year. How are things going with the KBA, and how are the other businesses kind of faring in town that you've been hearing, and what are their concerns, and maybe what are some bright spots?
Yeah, so this year I'm KBA president, not business as usual, that's for sure. It's been, it really varies kind of week to week, day to day, business to business, of course. So I'm speaking in kind of generalized terms. I think to start with the unfortunate piece is, without so much of our magic, as Kelseyville's magic, comes from our events, right? Comes from our street dances, the Dia de la Independencia, Pear Festival, Bacon Fest, and we had to make the really excruciating decision to cancel those for 2020. And as a business owner, that's a big hit. Pear Festival is usually our biggest day of the year. I'm sure you guys are, even though you don't do retail primarily, Jennifer, my guess is Cannot Seize is pretty busy on those days.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah.
We do event too.
Yeah. And so that's been tough. And knowing that those won't happen this year, at least in the sort of typical fashion, has required us to start to get a little bit more creative. I do have to say the KBA board has been really wonderful about highlighting what businesses are open and how they're open. We sort of did a campaign on Facebook because our social media presence is pretty banging, and I can say that because I have nothing to do with it. That's Kim Riley and Brian Fisher do most of that. And so we had a campaign about Kelseyville is back open. What does that look like? Because it really did look so different for every business. And it's hard as consumers to figure out, okay, can I physically go in this store? Is it online only? Do I call this one? And so they did some videos and graphics on social media to let folks know which businesses were open and what that looked like. I think that this pandemic has obviously sort of shaken us to our core and stopped sort of business as usual. And what I choose to focus on is the really cool and creative and interesting things that people and businesses have done to go, okay, this is our new reality right now. How can I pivot? What does that look like? Caroline and Jason at the brewery next door to A&H, are they're making seltzer now. They never made seltzer. It's absolutely delicious, by the way. And they were doing growler pickups, and then able to sort of connect with the community in a different way, knowing that it wasn't the same, of course, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that we can't still make those connections and have that community. The KBA board is kind of tossing around some ideas around what events could look like in the future, sort of medium future, not right away. Would we want to do something downtown where we can mandate social distance? What could that look like? We have a lot of questions. We're being super thoughtful about, how we go forward. And then honestly, I think really keeping that momentum and holding on to all that enthusiasm for 2021, knowing we really want to come out with a big old bang. I mean, we've got some incredible community sponsors, Tribal Health, Calpine, Kelseyville Lumber, and they, are committed to, I believe, staying on as sponsors for the next year instead. And that's really where, our bread and butter is the community members and businesses who, throw down money to say, yes, it is important that you have these events and you're able to create these family-friendly events and activities for the community. So we'll be real strong next year. We're going to think about some sort of new creative ways to bring the community together, hopefully on later this year. Visit Kelseyville is the Facebook page if folks want to follow, because that's usually where we post all the stuff we've got going on. But yeah, we took a hit for sure, and it's not the same. And our hope is that, with all of this creativity and sitting around we've been doing, thinking about things, we'll come up with even cooler stuff next year.
Yeah, and so many things that are creative come out of necessity and come out when you're forced to change. And, a lot of these things that we're seeing right now, we may not have ever seen. And so, I hate to say it's a plus side, but maybe it's a bright spot. It's a bright spot in how we're all changing and pivoting. And I so appreciate how you two are working so hard and bringing your creativity. And I want to see the pictures of the pallet planters soon. Let's talk about masking. It's a little controversial right now, and both of you are in your businesses and in your stores. And how are you feeling with that? And are you feeling like you have to police things, or how are you feeling safe and considering the safety of your other shoppers? And so just wanted to see if you could weigh in on that. Jen, do you want to start?
Well, I'm kind of on the fence. I struggle with wearing a mask myself. I have asthma, and within a few minutes of wearing it, I start wheezing, and then it becomes difficult for me to talk and to communicate. So I do have up a splash guard, and I get behind it, basically. I wear a mask, and then I get behind it, and I feel comfortable taking off my mask behind that. If I do have to be closer to somebody and not able to, maintain distance from them, I will definitely have a mask on and ask them if they're not wearing one to put one on. I think it's a safety issue. I struggle with it. I feel like distance is key as well. I feel a little more comfortable with distance than with the mask. But I put up notices, that it's required. But like I said, I'm kind of 50-50 because I struggle with it. I've had elderly people come in here with a mask on and ask me if they could take it off. And I got behind my splash guard and said, yes, please do, because I feel like that's safe. So I'm trying to maintain safety for myself, but the others in my family, my coworkers, employees, parents. So that's what it's about. It's about safety. I think there's so much emotion out there that, I think it's a personal decision. Some people don't think like the other people do, and vice versa. So I think it's a personal decision. I think we're all in charge of keeping ourselves and our families safe. And I don't believe that I have the right to police anybody. If I don't feel comfortable with it, I don't have to talk to them. That's basically how I feel about it. So it's safety, but I believe that we are in charge of our own safety.
And your guard is massive over your.
Yep.
I've been there. That is quite a barrier. And Sabrina.
Yeah, You know what? I had some anxiety before I reopened both stores. I ended up opening, I think, 2 weeks after we were allowed to. Literally all the days and months are blending together right now, so I don't have the exact date. But I think it opened June 4th at both stores. And my anxiety stemmed mostly from not knowing how folks would be with having to wear a mask. And primarily, and not wanting me or anyone who works with me or for me to be the police force around that. Um, I have to say, folks have been wonderful, really. It helps that my sister, Caitlin Andrus, owns Oak, the clothing boutique across the street, and she's got the hookup on a lot of masks. And so she got me some really great disposable ones that I have at the front. And having complimentary disposable ones just made it so much easier for me to feel good about saying, hey, there's a Lake County mandate and I've got a sign up on the front door. It's very interesting, actually. Almost 99% of the people read that sign before they come in. Would not have been the case pre-COVID. I think we're just there's a piece of our psyche that's changing a little bit in terms of how we are consumers and how we are a customer at a store. So everyone looks at it and it's just a quick, reminder of the mandate. Thanks for wearing your mask. We've got hand sanitizer and free masks if you need them. And then explains a little bit of our protocol. We're, spraying down common areas and the cash register in between every customer. And things like that. So, and the environmental health department has been helpful with having some sort of best practices and forms and things like that. I have heard of one customer who was not pleased at having to wear a mask at another downtown store and sort of stormed out and said they'd take their money elsewhere. And, that's her right to do that, to speak with her money or not. But yeah, we require them at both my stores. Folks have been really great. And, also honest, yep, they're not comfortable. This isn't super fun. But, I believe that those decisions in terms of where masks need to be worn should be made by public health officials and experts. And while I certainly have an opinion and access to Google, public health is not my background. And so what Dr. Pace says, I will follow when it makes sense to me. And this does make sense. And again, the community is yep, got it. Putting on my mask. Absolutely. Maintaining distance. The other thing I did at A&H, which was a nice little facelift, is I rearranged the store before I reopened. And so it's a lot more spacious. It's much easier to maintain that 6 feet. Just kind of gives it a little bit of a different feel. And while that may seem like a small thing, I think it really does actually sort of lend itself to more of a feeling of safety for customers, which is important.
And how was it developing your plan and working with the health department on the reopening?
So they just had a form that is, as I understand it, so we didn't submit it. It's just something that I've got on file should the health department ask for it. And it basically is, response to questions around how you're maintaining social distance, what does it look like for your employees versus customers, what are your best practices, and then I found a really helpful little table on their site around, you should be wiping down freezer handles every 1 hour, just something that I can say, oh great, I'm going to cut that in half and do it every 30 minutes. It just makes me feel a little bit better. And so that's been super helpful to have that available online. I can just go and figure out, what is required, and then also the information they've got to kind of help me make that decision for both my businesses.
I agree. That's what we did, is we basically looked up the requirements, put the checklist, and just read through it and followed it and changed accordingly, with the splash guard, with the hand sanitizer and the disinfectant. And, we just, like I said, it's our responsibility for safety here. And so we follow it and we just do what we have to do.
Oh, that's great. So what are both of you doing to take care of yourselves and your families? It's been a really long, emotional few months, and to maintain this sort of energy and creativity, you really have to recharge and relax. And I just wanted to check in with you and see how you're managing that. I know you just got back from vacation, Jen.
I went on vacation. I went and hiked the Rubicon. No, we really did do that. it's more of that. I have a 6-year-old at home too, so I'm very open and honest with him, age appropriate, but I want him to understand, but also at the same time, I don't want him to have the same anxiety and worry in the way that I do. So I think relaxing is probably my hardest challenge, because it's the anxiety of everything going on. And it hit me pretty hard in the beginning, but what I realized is making the candles, being creative, creating things, helped with that. But also too is accepting it is what it is, and you don't have control. You just got to get a little bit more creative with your thinking, and you change with the motion accordingly. And kind of the same thing, business and family is the same thing. Is we're in it together. At home, we're in it together here as a community, and you've got to do it. You've got to change your thinking and do what you need to do. So, and relax, I guess.
Find some downtime.
Good for you for that hike. Oh my gosh, I want to hear more about that at some point. I love the question, Jessica. I think it's so important to ask. I think that one of the things I have really internalized throughout the shelter in place is that we wear a lot of hats, but we're also the same person, right? Like, I'm not work Sabrina and KBA Sabrina and like sister Sabrina. All of it is sort of intermingled, and it means then that in supporting my family, I might not be as present for online orders the next day, like that kind of stuff. It is all just it's an ecosystem that we're all a part of. I am an introvert, and when I learned that, it was so interesting to me. Love to be in crowds, love being around people, and I lose all of my energy, and so I need to just like retreat and just be alone and kind of get all that energy back. One of the main ways that I've maintained that energy, with the gym closed, I got back into boxing and running. So I ran and boxed almost every day. Turns out, punching a mitt or air is just a great way to let off some steam, and I really like it. Yeah. That plus the creative use of my hands to make these, what I think are just beautiful pieces, was a really, really great form of self-care for sure. And getting out in a way that is safe into the beautiful natural surroundings that we've got here, I not die in Highland Springs and all of that, was really, really important, because it's, it was also a way for me to reconnect with my mom, who I lost. She died last year, and going through all of this while also sort of, going through the year of her passing, just meant that I had to really pay attention to where my heart and soul and body were, and what I needed to do to nourish them.
Oh, that's great, both of you. Thank you so much for being my first guest on this first edition of The Power of Community. Any last words?
I don't think so, other than I think we've said it a few times, but I think about this day and age, and pivoting and changing is all about being creative, and not creative in the way of like drawing a pretty picture. It's being creative in the way you think, and the way you go about your day-to-day business, family, and in the community. I think it's all about that.
And also, Jen, you just mentioned accepting that this is what's happening, and not being resistant to what's happening. And then you're able and you're open to make that pivot and those changes and to move forward, rather than kind of fight what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, to really lift up like the power of possibility. What is possible now? And I don't mean to be Pollyanna and to wash over the fact that this is incredibly harmful for a lot of families and individuals out there, as it is for me, for all of us. I think the only thing I would want to lift up once again is the importance of buying and shopping and supporting locally. And this community does that in spades. We've seen it after the fires. I think I personally experienced it when I had to shut down both stores. I think that, the sort of adage around, when you shop local, you're supporting this local family, it has never been truer, and I think that folks are excited and proud to be able to do something, right? And to choose to shop at a small mom and pop place over a big chain or a grocery store, does actually have a direct impact on that business owner for that day, for that week, for that year. And that is super powerful. And I don't think should go, unnoticed or unsaid. So I'm so appreciative of the community for sure. And I think that Jen and I are actually going to be working on maybe a line of candles for Maker at some point. So that's another thing that has been super exciting, is watching the businesses connect with one another to lift each other up. Yeah, just all about that. Support local.
Our community has been through so much together, and we value and appreciate each other so much. I think that's why we're seeing this strong localism and this strong support for each other, because if we don't have each other, then what do we have? And I think that's why we're seeing this. It's really beautiful to see, and it's so important, and I really couldn't think of a better place to be during this pandemic. And I want to urge everybody to get out there and shop local as much as you possibly can. It really does affect all of us, and it lifts up our community, and there's a beautiful sense of pride and support women like this and all of our other small businesses. So next week we're going to be talking about what's happening in the real estate market, which is hot. There's a lot going on. So Rick White is going to be joining. If you have any people that you think that would be a good fit for this little show that we're doing, or topics that you want to discuss, you can send me an email. You can give me a call, 707-278-4007. You can email me at Jessica Pyska for Supervisor D5 at Gmail. Go to my Facebook page or my website, Jessica Pyska for Supervisor D5. You'll find a lot more details about the work that I've been doing. But thank you so much to you wonderful ladies for joining me today. And I'll be in your shop soon. And come back next week and we'll talk real estate. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.